Bartholomew sat in his corner of the House of Life, endlessly moving the rows of the rigged Rubik's Cube, which he knew could not be put in order. He was determined anyway, and he loved the futility of constantly rearranging the rows of squares on the cube. At an angle from him was the artist seeking a perfection of expression and chasing language that was never quite good enough for its creator. Most travelers involved with the growing, harvesting, and preparation of food have only to see the food used for life, resulting in a constant repetition of life itself, a joyous futility. Traveling John understood the importance of the house rules. He was moving to live and needed a place. He was passing through, just passing through. He went down the lane where folks stayed in life, and his mind inquired about lodging and the rules. As he passed the dark house of death, he heard people crying, yelling, and being just miserable. So he passed by quickly without inquiring, as he was familiar with such a place. The next house was a sprawling estate called the House of Ladders. It was vast and beautiful, but humans and animals were being dragged in chains from the House of Death to the House of Ladders, and John's mind told John's feet to keep moving. Well, down the lane there was this very large place called the House of Life, and traveling John thought he found the right place, as he just simply wanted to live. Declarations were posted at the front door, and they were good in John's eyes. The Lady of Liberty, as she was known, showed John around the vast mansion, the grounds, and the multitudes of people going on about their business of life. That's where I met John, in the endless kitchen of the morning, where I had my wake-up morning coffee. "John, why do you travel?" I asked. "I travel to escape death," says John. "That's why I walked past the House of Death with its heavy rules of burdensome endings. I escaped from such a place. This is where I was trapped and dragged to another place, in which the house rule commanded you to get to the top of an imaginary ladder of power with no thought or consideration for life itself, which is why I went past the House of Ladders without consideration for it. When I saw the declarations and freedoms in the House of Life, I knew I had arrived at the place that I would stay." Well, I hate to inform you this, John, but this House of Life was built by people and animals that were dragged from the House of Death just like the House of Ladders was. "But I don't see that," said John. "The declarations on the door say nothing about this. I see workers can work, and the rules of the house prevail." I needed to point out to John that there were no fences, no gates, and no separation of the air and water that could keep the House of Life and Death separate, and that the winds mixed all things together in the compromised revolution of air we were breathing. "John, you can travel, but eventually you have to face that which comes to you from the House of Death, be it in the form of an invasion of ill will by injured men or the process of life itself. The decorations on the door of your house cannot stop that which is revolving." "But I will continue to travel," says John, "for I am traveling John, and that is what I do, as futile as this may seem." Is this really futility, or is it just the rules of the game as we travel to escape the latest revolution? I can see that traveling John is but a reflection in my clean plate of morning.